Larry, thanks for joining us. When's the last time you called a horse race where you had visibility that poor?
I've actually had a few that are worse than that over the years where you really couldn't see anything, but it's been a while, and certainly it wasn't a Triple Crown race. So it's a little bit different when that much is on the line.
What's the strategy when you're not able to make out the horses as clearly as you'd like?
Well, normally, Dan, I call every race with my binoculars, and that was pretty much not going to happen with this race. So luckily I had two monitors in front of me, and I had discussed about 10 minutes before the race for the director of our show, Pierre Moussa, to show me all the angles that he planned on showing and all the different shots in the different places. And we sort of strategized the best way to do it and went from there.
But is there modern technology? Are there chips in the saddles of these horses? Like, is there computer tracking as you're doing play-by-play?
There is. That does exist. However, I wasn't able to use that information. I did not know if I guess somewhere they may have had that maybe on the feed that Pimlico, the track itself, was showing, but I don't think we used that for the NBC coverage, and I didn't have any access to it. So I was just going by what I could see on the monitors.
When do you know you've seen a great horse?
I mean, that's a tough question. I think a lot of it has to do with who they beat and how they beat them. And I would say that Justify is going to rank up there as one of the best ones. I mean, it's to be determined still whether he can pull it off in the Belmont Stakes. I certainly think he can, but I mean, we've seen some great horses over the years, and obviously recent memory, American Pharoah would be the latest of those.
How does somebody get into the business of being a track announcer?
I started back when I was a kid. It's all I've ever done. I called my first race when I was 18 years old. My father put in the sound system at one of the tracks in Maryland where I grew up, and just started calling races over and over into a tape recorder with a pair of binoculars until they heard me one day and said, "Hey, I think we're good enough." And I started calling races, at age 18 over the Maryland tracks, and sort of went from there. Practice, practice, practice. That's the best way to get better at it.
But you're looking at numbers, you're looking at names. So how do you, I guess trying to figure that out. We have this in sports where we see numbers and we know names attached to it. But with horses, you're seeing a different race, every, 15, 20 minutes. So it's a little bit different there. So how do you do that where you're doing the word association?
It's jockey silks that I go by because that's the best way to discern the horses from each other. Those are the colors of each individual horse's owner, and that's the way to be able to tell them apart. What I do is when the horses come on the track, I just repeat their names over and over until I feel like I know who they are without having to look at my program. Obviously, a race like the Derby or the Preakness, you do that well in advance with the preparation by making, cue cards so you know who they are. Look at one side with the silks and say, "Hey, that's Justify, that's Good Magic," until you just have them just embedded in your memory. And then, with a normal racing day, as soon as that race crosses the wire, they just leave your head, and you have to dump all that information out and in a half an hour call another race.
You ever made a glaring mistake?
I have once or twice, yeah. we had a race at Aqueduct a couple of years back called the Wood Memorial, which was a pretty big prep race for the Kentucky Derby, and there was a horse down on the inside. It was sort of foggy that day, not quite as bad as the Preakness, but I thought it was another horse all the way up until the wire, and as soon as they hit the wire, I realized I was not calling the right horse the entire stretch run, and it was pretty embarrassing, and luckily it wasn't the last race I called that day, so I could sort of recover in a half an hour.
Well, you also had August of 2010 at Monmouth Park, which is one of your better moments, I think, nationally, or at least the opportunity for people to realize what you do. And you don't know how these horses are going to intertwine when you look at the program, but it seemed to intertwine magically that day. So we'll take you back to that call. Here's Larry Collmus at Monmouth Park.
My Wife Knows Everything broke well. Lady Mutada is up and on the pace. Rojo's Tune is out third. The Wife Doesn't Know fourth to the outside. And Eleni's Hope is fifth as they move for the first turn. On the far outside, Little Miss Macho is going up after that tardy start all the way up to battle with the leaders. On the lucky side is next. A ground-saving trip for Morningside Heights. Late for class in Miss Tallahassee or in the back of the field as Lady Mutada leads the way to the backstretch. On the far outside, The Wife Doesn't Know is moving up and is now fourth and right alongside of My Wife Knows Everything. My Wife Knows Everything and The Wife Doesn't Know are moving together on the far turn, and they're coming after Lady Mutada coming to the quarter pole. Lady Mutada in front. Here come My Wife Knows Everything and The Wife Doesn't Know on the far outside. Little Miss Macho is fourth. They're into the stretch. Lady Mutada, My Wife Knows Everything. Center of the track, The Wife Doesn't Know. Into the final furlong. My Wife Knows Everything. The Wife Doesn't Know. They're 1-2. Of course they are. My Wife Knows Everything in front. To the outside, The Wife Doesn't Know. My Wife Knows Everything. The Wife Doesn't Know. My Wife Knows Everything. More than The Wife Doesn't Know. Whew. Miss Tallahassee was third, and Morningside Heights was fourth.
Oh. You can't script it any better than that, Larry.
Well, that's what they threw at me. You know, those horses had, absolutely nothing in common. It was a complete coincidence that they showed up in the same race. And you could see as the race was developing that this could happen. They were starting to move together. I'm like, okay, here we go. And just wanted to get through it, just get the names right and finish it out. And I got a couple of text messages from friends afterwards, and all of a sudden, I guess it became a little bit bigger deal, and started to get YouTube hits like crazy. But it was fun.
Did you have ever anything close to that, where you're putting two horses together or three horses together with the names that you would never do that or never thought you'd do that?
No, I don't think so. I think that was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to have a race like that come along. So I don't anticipate it happening again, although I tell people I prefer to be more known for calling American Pharaoh's Triple Crown than that. But a lot of people seem to enjoy it, so I guess I should too.
Do people ask you to do voice messages or their phone message, their outgoing message?
Not as much as you'd think, but every once in a while. I did get a guy recently that was having an 80th birthday party for his father and wanted me to stage a fake horse race for them using all their names, and I said, sure, why not? And I did it for him. So it was a fun thing to do, and every once in a while you get that stuff.
That's cool. That's cool. I asked Doc Emmerich if he gets people who want to have his voice on their phone. He said yes, and so
I'm sure he does. Yeah,
I could understand him.
Everybody wants Doc.
Larry, thank you. Great job over the weekend, and we appreciate your sense of humor. Thanks for joining us.
No problem, Dan. Anytime.
And that's Larry Collmus, the NBC track announcer for the Preakness.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.